everybody, and welcome to another edition of Fire Up. Are we ready, guys, or what?
Yes, we are.
Let's go.
I'll take the book down, George, so you can be seen there. Sorry about that.
That's okay.
Well, I'm going to welcome my awesome crew tonight. My second hand, my co-host, I don't know, Jeremy, Smoking Jeremy B. Welcome back.
Good evening, everybody. Great to be here.
All right. And then another staple on the program, Mr. George Eichhorn.
Good evening, everyone. Good to be on board. Looking forward to the show.
And then another staple is Mr. Ralph Williams.
Thank you, Candy. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. And we have a special guest on tonight. We have Mr. Will Vogel. Thank you for joining us, Will.
Glad to be back. When I got the message from Jeremy, I was smiling from ear to ear because I love talking sports 24/7, 365, you name it.
All right. Well, then I'm looking forward to having you on tonight. Thank you, Will. So I was reading an article. Arizona State head coach Kenny Dillingham has a message for coaches who are complaining about the current state of college football. You know how many people want my job? You know how many people want my assistant coach's jobs and my analyst jobs? He recently said in an interview, "Don't complain about we do. You're blessed. There's a lot of negativity about it, yes. But do you know how many people want to be a college football coach?" He literally spent 9 years of his life doing anything to become a coffee boy. So don't give me the, "Oh, it's hard to be a coach right now." Yeah, it's hard. If you don't like it, quit. So I'm going to go around the panel. I want you guys to talk about the difference between coaching in college versus NFL, especially now that there's NIL, and how you feel about all of that. And we're going to start with my co-host, Smoking Jeremy B.
Well, all you got to do is look at Alabama. Prior to NIL and the transfer portal being where you can just transfer and play, they looked like the best paid team in college football. And now the NIL's there, they're not able to win the championships like they used to. They're getting runners-up and just outside the playoffs. It was so bad, Nick Saban says, "That's it, I'm done." And that pretty much says it all.
Mr. George Eichhorn, your thoughts?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's a situation that is, to me, a little alarming. And I agree with Jeremy. I mean, you see the situation with a guy like Nick Saban. He's been part of the fabric of college football for decades, including a stint here in my state, Michigan, with the Michigan State University Spartans. And then you see a situation like Jim Harbaugh. And I know Jim is kind of one of those coaches that, did have that other dream, and that other dream being a Super Bowl championship. So his situation was a little, or maybe a lot more different than Nick Saban's, in the fact that he still had the burning desire to go back to the pros and to coach. But when we see the coaches that are starting to leave college football, it is sending up a red flag to me. It is telling me that there are situations that are becoming more and more burdensome. We always knew that it's tough to be a recruiter. I mean, but they knew that going in, and they've been recruiting for years and years. But with NIL, with the transfer portal, with TV networks screwing around with your kickoff times being 12 noon, now with the Big Ten and the Pac-12, and teams moving from California, teams playing in the Big Ten, and Washington and Oregon. It's crazy out there. And I can see where the college coaches would be a little frustrated. And I also see the point, Candy, that you mentioned, that if you don't want to do it, you can't handle it, then don't do it. They have the free right to go and not go. But that's always true with any job. But I am concerned if we lose top tier coaches like we have been. I mean, it's just, Ralph, you buddy Bill Cowher. I know I'm
Yes.
comparing apples to oranges, but Here's a brilliant man. He
Yes.
never went back to coaching. Jimmy
No, he
Johnson.
didn't. No, you're
Johnson.
right.
They went to the broadcast booth.
How about Steve Mariucci? He never
There's
went back
another
to
one.
coaching either. Brian Billick. I can name you a whole bunch of guys that never went back to coaching. Coaching's not an easy job. Bill Cowher, by the way, George, speaking to him, he was offered the position. He was offered the head coaching job at NC State because they had fired Chuck D'Amato down there. And then what happened was they offered him the job. He turned it down. And then he was interviewed twice by reporters from like CBS and whatnot. And he told them the same thing. Why would I want to get back into coaching when I got the best commentary job there is? And I make good money. I could see my daughters and I have a life. That's exactly how he put it. And if you can make more money doing broadcasting than you can coaching and you don't have to work that much, I'd do it in a second. So
Okay.
and my opinion of the NIL is this: the NCAA ought to be ashamed of themselves. And it all started when they start letting athletes leave before 4 years. Okay, there's no structure. The NCAA has zero structure, and it's all about money. Okay, all right. They sit there, they go on and on and on about how they care about the student body. Well, if you care about the student body and the student athletes so bad, then why do you have Stanford in the ACC, and why do you have Cal U traveling all the way to Pitt to play Pitt at Acrisure Stadium for the 2024 season? So I don't want to hear it from the NCAA that they care about athletes, because they don't. It's all about the Benjamins.
Okay. Mr. Will, your opinion. What you got on this take?
It's a two-sided coin. It's a two-sided coin. I can see both arguments. But I think college coaches are getting fed up. College coaches have to please the administration that they help work for and the alumni. They have to deal with a young athlete getting X amount of money. They also have to deal with the transfer portal. And I wouldn't be surprised if more coaches follow suit, where they're like, you know what? I'm sick of this. I'm going to the NFL. I don't have to deal with this transfer portal and this NIL stuff. And I think Jeff Hartley said it best. And I'm happy that Ralph said it pre-show, because I actually wrote down what he said. He said, and I agree wholeheartedly, college coaching has become fundraising, NIL, recruiting, and owning a team and transfers. And there's no time to coach anymore. It's just all about those other things. So I am on the side of Coach Hartley. He went from Boston College to the Green Bay Packers because he couldn't stand it anymore. It just got annoying. And yes, I agree with what you said, Candy. If you can't do it, just don't do it. If you can do it, then great.
Okay, guys. You guys are all too soft. Let me ask you a question. And I'm going to first ask Jeremy. Okay? In the last 5 years, your job, has it changed because of technology?
The technology for tire techs hasn't changed since 1995, when they did away with what was known as the arm breaker. The old center post tire removers that they had. They called them the arm breaker because if you use it wrong, that arm that came around would break your arm while you're taking the tire off. Now they have these touchless machines. So yes, the job changed, but not in the last 5 years.
Well, the technology to run how to do things and maybe order and some of that, a little. Okay.
Not they haven't even put a computer in yet.
Okay. So some of you know, some of you don't know. I work in the banking industry. The banking industry has changed tremendously over the years. How many people are using ATMs? How many people are using what you would call a little smartphone? You can do your banking on your smartphone. You can pay your bills. You can hold your credit card on a digital wallet and use this at the ATM for a debit card. My job has changed over the course of the last how many years. And my choice was either you adapt and you learn and you grow with the job, or you get out of the business. Because now, let me ask George. Let me ask you one question, George. You've worked for radio stations and newspapers. How many newspapers are still around?
Well, quite a few of them have folded, as you know, Candy. And but as far as the changes, oh yes, of course, in radio and TV and newspapers, it's been tremendous. I mean, to think back when I went to college, one of my courses was obviously news writing, and we used typewriters. Yes, manual typewriters we had to use at Wayne State University in the old main building, as it's called. And in the broadcast area, oh, tremendous, of course. And Scott and I know because we were on, we started uh, almost close to each other as far as the radio business goes. And it was called Rip and Read. So you waited for the teletype machine to come and tell you the story on the Detroit Lions game that somebody wrote at the stadium and used a phone or something to send his story transmitted, or one of these suction cups devices they're called that go on the phone and transmit the story. I mean, those days are gone. I mean, the days of bringing in a tape recording machine or, yeah. So, yeah, to answer your question, tremendous changes as far as radio, TV, and newspapers going. And now, of course, newspapers, like you said, Candy, many of them we've lost. Then they'll never be back, some of them. And even the way we're reading the newspaper, as you guys all know, is very different because most people just read it online. They don't subscribe to it, even though I still do. But most of them don't get a hard copy. Yeah, a lot of changes.
So my point is that a lot of jobs have changed over the years, and you have to learn to adapt with those changes. If you don't want to adapt with those changes, then get out of the business. So what I'm telling you is these college coaches that are complaining, I get it. It's not the same as what it was. But then you need to go out and find something different, because stop complaining about it, because it's not going to get any easier or any better. Your job is not changing.
Well, Candy, I'll tell you what Pitt has done. The University of Pittsburgh. They went out and they started a group called Alliance 412. And they have some alum who are actually working as consultants. And what they do is they go out and they solicit donations for NIL. Okay. That takes the pressure off of Pat Narduzzi, the head coach. Okay. And the assistants. So we don't have to deal with that now. They have a separate group that does it. It's called Alliance 412. That's what Pitt does now. And I know Penn State, because I know somebody that covers Penn State that I'm friends with, and he told me they have a $70 million budget for NIL. And they have a group too that handles that $70 million budget. So that right there, James Franklin, Pat Narduzzi, and maybe some other coaches and some other universities and programs are probably have the same thing. But I know Pitt does what Pitt does, what I just explained to you.
So I get it. So they're adapting. They're learning how to adapt so that all the pressures aren't on a coach. That's exactly what you need to do. But don't complain as a coach. I'm sick and tired of people complaining and going to the media and complaining, or when they're being interviewed, complaining about it. You knew it was going to happen. They've been talking about it for years. It didn't just all of a sudden appear. You knew it was going to happen. So either be proactive and find a different job, because let's face it, college coaches get paid a pretty penny. All of them make way more money than I make. My job, like I said, has changed tremendously. And especially, I would say, since COVID. Because COVID advanced a lot of things so people can be more self-sufficient. So my question to you is going to be, is there going to be many more brick and mortar like banks or self-service things like that? Because if more and more people are doing them at an ATM, at a machine, or doing them online or online banking, my job is going to be going away eventually. So if I don't think now and be proactive, I'm going to be like some of the newspaper editors that are out jobs because there's no longer print newspapers anymore. So my point is, all these college coaches that are complaining, either take a job someplace else, coach someplace else, or collaborate like Pitt did and get a group that's taking off some of the pressure off you so you can coach and other people can do some of these other jobs. It's kind of funny because look at the NFL. How many people want to be GM and head coach? So they want more responsibilities, and yet college coaches are complaining because now they have too many responsibilities. Anybody else want to chime in or thoughts?
No, you nailed it.
Thank you, Will.
Well,
Well, so go
I'll
ahead.
say this. I'll say this, Candy. I do agree with what you're saying. If they don't like their job, and I do agree with you about banking, based on the fact that this is a sports show. We have PNC Bank here. Their headquarters is here in Pittsburgh. They have cut many teller jobs. I know some tellers that got their jobs cut. Okay, when you walk into some of the branches now, there's a computer screen there, and you talk to a virtual teller. You don't go to a personal teller. I'm not with PNC because of that. I am with a different bank that still has tellers, personal tellers. And when their theft services call me to tell me that my card's been hacked or something, I get a direct phone call from an office in downtown Pittsburgh, not in India, and I get somebody that speaks English. You understand what I'm saying? That's why I stick with that bank. But PNC has been doing that. Citizens Bank here, their headquarters is here. They're under the umbrella of Bank of New York. They have cut teller jobs. So I get what you're saying, and it's the same thing with college. But Pitt had to learn how to adapt because they got burned with this NIL when it first came out in the transfer portal. Oh my gosh, did they get burned? They lost a lot of good athletes.
I get it. I can say, I'm not going to say the name of the bank that I work for, but it is not PNC.
No, that's fine. Right.
No, I get that too. The one thing I will say about the bank that I do work for is that we did not lay off any of our tellers. Yes, our tellers are not just tellers anymore. We are training them to work on both sides so they can start opening accounts and they can help people with service. So we're upscaling that position, which I really agree with.
I'm going to tell you a little story here real quick, Candy, before I don't mean to get off topic, but here's a good story. You were telling me about how tellers are doing other jobs. The radio station where I do my sports show, they just fired the news director and he was there for 12 years. They fired him because all he wanted to do was the news. They wanted him to do like accounting, putting in like advertising accounts into the computer and doing clerical work. And he was messing it up because he didn't know how to do it right. And they fired him. They said, "You don't want to do this, you're fired." And he was there for 12 years. I was shocked when I went to do my show on Tuesday at the studio, and I found out from my producer that this guy got fired. I said, "Oh my gosh, Matt's a nice guy." And then all of a sudden he got fired. I found out he just wanted to do the news. He didn't want to do nothing else. And that's what it is too.
I get it. Well, we're going to move on to the segment that I started, I don't know how many shows ago, but it's called My Town. And it's where you can talk about either the town you're currently living in or the town you grew up in, love, or whatever you want. I am going to go last. So I am going to let's start with our special guest, Mr. Will.
Man, I've got one of each, but I think I should do one. Fine. Okay. I'm going to start with the town I was born in. I was born in Stamford, Connecticut, and I'm a women's UConn Huskies fan. And so I'm going to talk about their women and their men's basketball team. The first thing is the women. Gino Auriemma just passed. Mike Krzyzewski for second most wins in NCAA history. And Paige Beckers surprised all her fans on senior night saying, "I am coming back for my senior year," as opposed to going to the draft where she probably would have been a top 5 pick. And I think even next year she'll be a top 5 pick. On the men's side of that, Dan Hurley was walking off the court and he got in a verbal exchange with a fan and it got ugly and the fan was saying some nasty stuff and Hurley was saying some nasty stuff. And as a coach, it doesn't look good. It was caught on camera. It doesn't look good. So, I get it. A fan was saying something mean to you, but you need to remain professional. You're a leader of men. You're a coach. Stand your ground. Know your place. As for where I am right now, I am in Charlotte, North Carolina. The MLS season kicked off last night, but in Charlotte, kicks off on Saturday. I wish I could go, but I'm working. The Charlotte FC is kicking off their season against New York City FC. And we have a great attendance in Charlotte, so hopefully we can build on last year's season where we didn't make the playoffs. So hopefully this year we do make the playoffs.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Will. You have a fan out there. Patty Grimes is saying, good job,
Thank
Will.
you, Patty. I know Patty. Yes.
Awesome.
Thank you, Patty.
Awesome. Mr. George, let's go with you tonight. What's happening in your town?
And my town is Detroit, Michigan, as you guys know. And I got the sad news before I went on the show with Pundit, and Scott and I used to work with Ron Cameron. Ron Cameron died Tuesday night. I just got word today, 79 years old. This guy was like the godfather of sports talk radio in Detroit. We started out in the business. Well, he started out before me, but I was a producer of his radio show back in the late 70s, early 80s. And then Scott succeeded me as the producer of the show on ABC owned and operated WXYZ AM 1270. Ron was a dinosaur. You talked about the topic of how things have changed, Candy, over the years, and certainly Ron was one of those guys that he still kind of lived in the past. He would sell his own advertising, he would buy his own airtime, and he would do trades. You advertise on my show, Holiday Inn. In exchange, you give me a room. Things that you don't even see anymore like that. I once took a trip with him down to Lakeland, Florida to see the Detroit Tigers. And what happened was I said, what are you going to do? Rent a car? Oh, no, I don't rent it. I said, what do you mean, Ron? How are we going to get down there? He says, no, it's called the drive-away car. Some person, usually a senior citizen, wants their car delivered from Detroit to Florida. So you make a deal with that person and you sign up to get that vehicle down there within 3 days, 72 hours, whatever it was. And so we took this really fancy car from Detroit down to Lakeland. And I said, well, Ron, how are we going to get back? He goes, oh, we're going to pick up another one from a guy in Tampa. We got to deliver his car back up to Windsor, Ontario. I says, oh, okay. I mean, this is the kind of crazy stuff, that Ron did to watch his pennies and his dollars. It's a big loss. He hasn't been well for the last couple of years, had some very serious medical issues. So it didn't come as a total surprise. But Ron Cameron was an institution in Detroit radio, as well as other states. He had shows in Arizona and Florida at one time. So farewell, my friend. You did a lot for sports in Detroit. I mean, I know you were outspoken and a lot of people didn't like you, but boy, oh boy, you certainly put your name on the map here as far as sports talk radio in Detroit. Thank you, Candy, and God for letting me share this today.
Of course. Rest in peace, Ralph. Okay, Ralph Williams, what's happening in your town?
Well, the Pittsburgh Penguins have been stinking up the joint. They're not doing real well. The power play stinks. They can't score goals. The goalie, Christian Jarry, who I wanted to run out of town, actually is doing pretty well for himself. Last night, the backup goalie the other night, Jerkovic or however you pronounce his last name, he played goal. We still lost 5-4. We've been losing close games, but we just can't score the goals. I hope Kyle Dubas does something about the Penguins, and we'll see what happens. Also, the Pirates finally opened up Bob Nutting, the owner, finally opened up his wallet, and we signed Mitch Keller to a 5-year, $77 million contract. So I hope that the wallet continues to open up. I have John Parado, who some of you might know, maybe George and Jeremy and whatnot might know, and Scott. He's a well-known baseball writer, not only just in Pittsburgh, but across the country. He's going to be on my show from Bradenton, Florida on Tuesday on my radio show to tell me exactly the rumor I heard that there's some friction between Bob Nutting and Ben Sherrington. Bob Nutting told Ben Sherrington, I'll open up the wallet. You tell me what you need, fix this team and do it right. And he hasn't asked Bob Nutting for extra funds. And now finally, Bob Nutting opened up the wallet and said, I'm going to give Mitch Keller money, and they're going to start signing some of their core players. They signed Keith Brian Hayes last year to a big contract, or 2 years ago. Next, they're working on O'Neal Cruz and a few other guys. So now the Pirates are starting to realize that you can't be frugal anymore, and Bob Nutting is willing to open it up. And I hope that Bob Nutting continues to do this, and Ben Sherrington might get fired next year because he was told he was allowed to spend whatever he needed, and he hasn't done it.
Okay.
And that
Mr.
completes my report.
Okay. Smoking Jeremy B, what is happening in your town that you want to talk about?
Well, today we made sure that we're probably not drafting a kicker this year because we re-signed Michael Badgley to the Detroit Lions, which means Dan the Gambler Campbell shall keep out his fourth down.
And Deshae Townsend is a coach. Deshae
yeah,
Townsend.
we've already talked about that. Yep, Deshae Townsend is the secondary coach. Terrell Williams is now the D-line coach. We also got another assistant coach that we just brought in on the defense. And much to the chagrin to a lot of Lions fans, Dre Bly, Brian Duker, John Fox, and John Hostler have all been released from the Lions.
Okay. So I'm going to piggyback. Well, first I'll piggyback a little bit off Will. Yes, MLS started. The season opened last night down here in Fort Lauderdale because Lionel Messi played and Inter Miami won 2-0 yesterday. And that would be down here in Florida. But as for my town, I have a gripe. And it has to do with the NBA. I'm specifically going to take a shot at Adam Silver. Adam Silver, if the reports that I'm hearing are coming out that are true, I have not been a fan of NBA really for the last I don't know how many years, but this will definitely seal it for me. Typically, with you're an NBA franchise and you build a new stadium, typically you will get the NBA All-Star game in your new stadium. So what did Milwaukee do? Milwaukee built a new stadium, the Fiserv Forum, and they've been trying to bid to get the NBA All-Star game. Now, it's not a game that I really care about, but you have an NBA franchise in the Milwaukee Bucks that built a new stadium. They should get the NBA All-Star game. And now you're reneging because now there is a report coming out that they're all of a sudden going to start changing the requirements. So there's going to be a minimum requirement of minimum hotel rooms, the size of a convention center, and the number of nonstop and international flights coming to that city. Well, then why do you have an NBA team there? That is ridiculous. I'm sorry. The stadium seats I think I looked it up, 17,500 for a game. They have over 8,000 hotel rooms around the city of Milwaukee. And if you want to drive hour and a half, you can get to Chicago where there's 45,000 hotel rooms. So, you can't tell me that there aren't people that if they go to, I don't know, Golden State Warriors or some of these other stadiums, that the traffic to get to some of these stadiums isn't going to take you an hour and a half to get there. So driving to and from Chicago is not that big of a deal. Adam Silver, if you don't bring the NBA All-Star game to Milwaukee because they built a new stadium, you are alienating a fan base. And I'm sorry. That is not your job. Your job is not to alienate a fan base of a pro team you have in that league. It'd be different if you didn't have a team there. I would get it then. But you have a team there. Albeit I know it's a small market. You're not the NFL. You're not the Super Bowl that wants a nice, glamorous city or wants a city in that or a Super Bowl that's inside or climate controlled or warm weather. I get it. Lambeau will not get a Super Bowl. I get it. But we're talking about a sport that plays indoors. It should not matter. All of those other things. So Adam Silver, I hope this isn't true, and I hope you do bring an NBA All-Star game, even though I don't care. And let's face it, how many people watched that NBA All-Star game that happened last weekend when there was absolutely no defense played? It's not a game. It's a how many shots can we take? How many free not free throws, how many shots can we fire up and make? That's all it is. It's not defense. So I really don't care about the game, but it's the principle of that. The principle of alienating a fan base that you have in your league.
Amen.
So that's my soapbox. Sorry, guys. But so
Great
any
soapbox.
other thoughts? Anybody want to comment on anybody else's?
I got an update. Scott's probably able to go to bed because the Red Wings beat the Avalanche 2-1.
I was just
Okay.
going to
George
say, yeah,
won.
that was a great win for Detroit. Candy, I've been fighting these same issues with the All-Star games here in Detroit. You know, we got a beautiful new arena, Little Caesars Arena, and they will not award Detroit the NHL and the NBA All-Star games yet. Now, I did hear a report yesterday saying that the NHL is considering Edmonton and Detroit for a future game. And you know, but I agree with you. I mean, Milwaukee definitely deserves that game, the NBA. And I don't know what kind of smoke and mirrors they use, but they already awarded it to the new Los Angeles Clippers arena. Okay, I see they got one in a couple years. And Indiana, of course, but it hasn't been in the new arena in Indiana, so I'm glad they went there this year. But yeah, there's so much politics in those All-Star selections. Oh, I hate it.
I do too.
I agree. It doesn't belong in the sport.
Who's the
Right.
worst
Thanks,
Right.
Patty, for agreeing with me. I appreciate that. It's also good for business in Milwaukee. You're right. Especially
Right.
for a small market team, they could use it.
And you're
Look-
talking about a city, as you know, Candy. You guys hosted the Democratic convention, and now you're having the Republican National Convention there. So don't give me that stuff about not enough hotel rooms. The parties would not bring their conventions there if Milwaukee could not adequately handle it. I agree with you.
I've been to Milwaukee. I know it.
Mm-hmm.
That being said, on top of that, I have a quick question for the panel before we sign off. Who's the worst
Sure.
commissioner of the league? Adam Silver, Roger Goodell, the guy I can't even think of his name that runs baseball.
Manfred.
So which one? Which one is the worst for you? Because
Baseball commissioner is the worst.
all three.
Well, they are. Yeah, Roger Goodell's horrible too. Yeah, they are. But I mean, if I had my choice of one, it would be the baseball commissioner, Rob Manfredi or whatever his name is, Manfred. Yeah.
Yep.
I think Adam Silver has been running it into the ground ever since he's been there. I don't like anything he's done. He's had so much favoritism towards the big market teams. It isn't funny. All the mid-market, the small market teams are being left out of everything, and it isn't fair.
No.
I've got a comment on Adam Silver, but I will save it for after the show.
But I agree. All three of them, yes. But I would give the tip to Adam Silver because I just think, like he said, he's been alienating the fan base. Bob Manfred, he's at least been trying to, and I know a lot of people don't like some of the changes he's made to the game, but if he was losing people, he's trying to make adjustments. So I give him credit for trying to make adjustments. But and let's say Roger Goodell, they've got the deepest pockets now. He's developed the league, so now it's way outpowered any other team. It's it makes the most money. So I got to give mine, but maybe it's because Adam Silver's got my goat right now, especially. But Adam Silver, because I think the NBA, the game has gotten away from what it was, and we don't watch it as much. It's not as fun to watch. It's
Right.
not
I
the
don't
same
watch it no
game as
more.
it was.
I
They
haven't
don't
watched
play
it since
defense.
Jordan left.
Exactly. So
I haven't watched it.
It's not fun anymore to watch.
I haven't watched it since they ran the Bad Boys out of town.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah.
With that
good
being
point.
said, we're going to go around the panel, because unless anybody else has any other topics they want to quick bring up to anybody,
All set.
we'll go around the panel. You can tell everybody how they can get a hold of you, and then we will sign off. Let's start with Mr. George Eichhorn.
Well, you can reach me at South Florida Tribune. You'll find me under the Motor City Tribune with a lot of great writers, including Scott and Candy. Well, she's a great photographer too, and Jeremy. And we really, the Motor City Tribune, at the end of my column, you'll see a little tag that'll show you how to, if you were interested in my book, it's called Detroit Sports Broadcasters on the Air. And I'm also blessed to be asked to write the foreword for Scott's book, Lessons from the Microphone. So make sure you pick up one of each if you want. Good reading, good information, and lots of stories. You can reach me at gicorn@yahoo.com, on LinkedIn under my name, George Eichhorn, and also on Twitter at SanGSports99. And follow me too on many of these shows, which I appear, and I'm very grateful for that. And looking forward to more of the Fire Up shows and Pundit's Pundit we had earlier tonight, 108 Stitches, and keep up the great work, all of you that contribute to those great shows.
Okay, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Will. And let me tell everybody that's in our audience, Mr. Will is on this show because Mr. Will comes in on our chat room and he talks and he brings up comments and he listens to our shows and he watches us. And we've said on our shows before, if you comment on our shows, we'll bring you on from time to time. And look, here you are, Will. Tell us how people can get a hold of you.
So you guys can find me on Wednesday nights on Jeremy B's channel. We have the NFL Round Table Talks with him and Von Doom and other fans. Friday nights, you can find me also on Jeremy B's channel with Jeremy B and Von Doom, but it is the Detroit Lions Fan Cave Chat. Thursdays, you can find me on the Sip Off, occasionally hosted by Megan Price. It just depends what she's doing. It's not every week. It could be every other week. And then whenever I'm invited, I'm here. But if I'm not here, I'm always in the comment section.
Exactly. Thank you, Will. Mr. Ralph, how can people get a hold of you?
Ralph Williams 737@gmail.com. I now have all my shows moved from Block Talk Radio. I've discontinued myself with them. Everything will be on YouTube or Facebook or Twitch or Twitter X platforms. I now have 7 podcasts altogether now. I'm taking a couple of weeks off from some shows that will not be aired until March 11th. But you can I have my own YouTube channel. Please subscribe. I also can be reached on Facebook. I'm also on Tumblr. I'm also on Twitter and LinkedIn as well. And I also have my own radio show on Tuesday 4 to 6 p.m. Beaver County Radio. Check it out. I have some great guests coming on this Tuesday. With me, Ralph Williams, smoking Jim Frazier.
Awesome. Okay. Last but not definitely not last, because I haven't gone yet. My co-host, Smoking Jeremy B.
I gave you the little side eye right there. I said, last, you still got to go. But anyway, you can find me on the SouthFloridaTribune.com underneath the Motor City Tribune heading, underneath the great authors that write books such as Scott Morganroth and George Eichhorn. You can find my writings about the NFL and the Detroit Lions. You also can find me right here on the South Florida Tribune channel on any of the Fire Up shows, which could be 3 a week. Sometimes it's 2. Sometimes it's 1. It all depends on the week and who's got the schedule. Then you can find me 8 days a week on my channel, which is Kneecap Biting with the Motor City Lions, where I do my daily talk show at 11 a.m. before I go into my day job, where I talk any and all Lions news. I also try to come up with my own original topics and questions. Then you got my Wednesday night show, which Will mentioned, because he started out as a Panthers fan, and I somehow converted him to the Lions. Because I 45-10 drumming the one time, I don't know, but anyway, and then the Lions fan cave chat. I also do a Monday show where it's a random topic where it's just me and Von Doom, because that's how I run my post game show. It's just me and my co-host. So that being said, I'm everywhere.
You're everywhere.
Sounds like it.
Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. I'm recently opening a Kick channel, and I'll explain that in a minute.
Oh, I forgot to mention too. I'm going to be on my shows now. Will be on the Fan First Sports Network, and that's coming up at the beginning of March.
Nice.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Okay, so first and foremost, I want to thank all of you for coming on the show tonight. Second of all, I would like to ask all of our guests, if you haven't hit our red subscribe button, please do it now. Share our content, but also go to all of our co-hosts and our panelists and go to their YouTube channels and subscribe to them too, because if it weren't for them, we wouldn't be on here either. So we all collaborate together and we all help support each other. Sorry, Jeremy, you're kind of being hidden right now, but this is what Scott's book, my husband, wrote, Lessons from the Microphone. Please go out and get it. It's on Amazon and Kindle. It talks about his over 44 years in the media business and how it has changed over the years. We talked earlier on this show how my job has changed, how college coaching has changed. Well, so has being in the media. Amazon and Kindle. It's got great pictures too. Then go to our website, www.southfloridatribune.com, where we have great writers like Jeremy and George and my husband, Scott. And I go out and take pictures. So there'll be pictures, Jacksonville Jaguars. There'll be Miami Hurricanes, USF basketball against FAU basketball. Go see some of my pictures on the website. Go see any of our shows. We have a plethora of shows. If you like baseball, it's 108 Stitches Baseball Talk. If you like football, it's Inside the Pigskin. If you like well-rounded shows, we have Sports Exchange. We do Pundit's Pundit before this on Thursday nights. We have Fire Up tonight. Last night we had Fire Up Michigan. On Sunday, you will have Fire Up, and that's where it's just Jeremy and I, and you never know what we might be talking about. You'll have to tune in to find out.
I know what we won't be talking about.
What?
Politics.
I'm guessing you won't be talking
Hey, I
about
talk enough about that on my podcast, so there you go.
Hey, you can do it for all of us, because I refuse.
Exactly. So do we.
It's kind of like
We
being
also,
in the bar. You just
we
don't talk
also,
about it.
go ahead. Sorry, Jeremy.
No, that's it. It's just like being in the bar. You don't talk politics or religion. It's a good way to end up in a fight, and it doesn't even have to be an Irish pub.
Exactly.
Correct. But go to our website. If you have ideas, you can always be in our chat room. Otherwise, you can email us at southfloridatribune@gmail.com. If you want to advertise or sponsor any one of our shows or all of our shows, call Scott, 954-304-4941. The audio version can be heard on iHeartRadio, Apple, Spotify, Google, or wherever you get your podcast. Again, please hit our red subscribe button if you haven't already, and go to our co-hosts and hit that red subscribe button. I believe the red subscribe button is right by Will tonight. It's normally down in the right corner, so just hit that red subscribe button, and you'll get notifications of all of our shows and when they go on. And then you can come on and comment. But most importantly, just be a good person and have a good day and have a good week. Jeremy, what's your saying as you end the shows?
Try every day to be a better person than you were the day before. That's the only way to make the world a better place. It starts in here. If you don't start with yourself, you cannot change the world.
So, thank you, Jeremy. Thank you, Ralph. Thank you, George. And thank you, Will. Everybody have a great weekend.